is a new online radio station. WNB1 Radio broadcasting live 24/7. All music genres. WNB1 Radio. Your urban music link.
It's the Really Charlie Podcast. Yeah, it's the Really Charlie Podcast. Yo, it's the Really Charlie Podcast. Bumping through your broadcast. Grab a chair, fill your glass. Yeah, it's the Really Charlie Podcast. Yo, it's the Really Charlie Podcast. Yeah, it's the Really Charlie Podcast. Bumping through your broadcast. Grab a chair, fill your glass.
Hey, you listening to WNB1 Radio. I'm Charlie Perry, here with my man, the funky professor, Waleem. We're going to try to start this show. It's a new show. We both talked about it, and we decided that we're going to put this together, especially for you guys. You know, we're going to rap, talk about poetry, music, almost anything. You know, this is going to be our podcast. We're going to do it right now once a month, but it may be a whole lot longer a whole lot sooner than that, but we'll see. You know, he is a musician, artist doing his thing. He's got many things to do. But I'm glad I have him once a month, you know. What's going on, man? Nice to see you. Show number 1, episode number 1.
All right, Poetic conversation.
Yeah, you know, we definitely this is something that you know, is dear to my heart, dear to your heart, and so I can't wait to just chop it up, you know, and bring things to the community as we always talked about, you know, with the crafts that we do have, and just kind of having a well-rounded community. You know, we just sometimes, well, I could say for decades, there's always been a black box in New Bedford, you know, and this is what you did at this time. This is who did it at that time, but we're going to talk about that in one of the subjects we have today, so all right. Why don't we talk about you and your bio? You know, give us something that our viewers can know about you, other than, you know, this poetic conversation.
Know about me? Well, okay. My name is Waleem, for those of you who haven't met me already. I'm from Mashpee.
Let's put that closer.
Pull this closer already.
Yeah, you can actually put it on the table if you want.
All right. Oops. All right.
Yeah, there we go.
That works. So I'm from Mashpee, and I can actually say Mashpee and the Bronx, New York, having grown up both places, actually at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And if you know local history, you know that if you're from Mashpee, you're connected to New Bedford. Especially if you're Mashpee Wampanoag, you're connected to New Bedford.
Nice.
Part of Wampanoag territory.
Mm-hmm.
Many cousins who live in New Bedford. When I came back to Massachusetts, initially teaching at UMass Dartmouth, I lived right on Park Street. Had a house right there, and then went back to Mashpee just because it was Mashpee.
Yeah,
but New Bedford's still home.
It's
it's good to be here, and it's and particularly as an artist, it's important to be connected to a city. So New Bedford is my home city in that regard as well.
Definitely.
And,
it's what I like is and I know you've been around, you know, and traveled, and the one thing I like about, you know, my life and my opportunity is that I was able to go away from this area for a few years and come back.
Mm-hmm.
And what it taught me was a lot of different things culturally, you know, historically. There was so many things that I've learned that I might have not learned if I had just stayed here, you know, because we kind of think this little old city is the world, and to me it is the world because it means so much to me.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes we there's other things that we need to learn to be a well-rounded person, you know.
Well,
So,
it's part of what they refer to as the warrior's journey.
hmm
That we always have to have a period of time in our lives where we step away from what we know is familiar and what we know is home. And then, of course, there are usually two ways to return home. You return home, the weary traveler, or you are carried home on your shield.
hmm
And so you were either a student or a casualty.
Yes.
Is you- is one or the other. You were a student who came home a scholar, or you came home a casualty.
hmm
You came home, you came home a success story or a cautionary tale.
Yeah,
But
definitely. I I thank God that I did come home.
you came home a weary traveler.
Yeah,
You,
yeah. I was
you came home. You came home. You came home elevated by your
hmm
experience in a
yes.
different consciousness. That's coming home. The scholar. That's the weary traveler.
Yeah, definitely. Um man, that's inspirational right there. I think I got something ahead I need to write, I'm gonna use that as a title. So more to come.
All right.
The so it wouldn't be a poetic conversation without kind of giving some poetry. So
I thought we were doing that from jump. That was the conversation.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
The exploration of metaphors and color of language. That's been the
mm,
conversation thus far.
that's
Now, if you
it.
want to do formal poetry, by all means, let me listen.
All right, I
But
wanna.
I've been enjoying the poetry you've been flowing with so far.
hmm All right, I got you. I read you. I read you loud and clear.
Yeah.
The let's see. Let's find a little piece here. I mean, you and I could do some things, and
Mm.
I know in the future we are going to do some things,
Oh
but
yeah.
I would love to recite some poetry with you, the Groovalados in the background, doing something,
Yeah.
and just kind of reciting things. I mean, I done a few things with music in the background, but I would love you guys. You get it. You get it. It's there. It's in your heart, your mind, your soul, and so when I'm saying something, you're already gonna feel it, and
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, we got to do that. All right, y'all. I got some poetry that I wrote. Just trying to. I was thinking about the show, thinking about what I could do, what I can recite. I mean, I have thousands and thousands of different writings.
I tell you what, I'll start scatting behind you.
All right. Okay. Let's see.
Let's see what we got.
Let's see what we got here. All right. Let's go back. Let's go back to Cali. Cali. All right. Here we go. All right. Can You Flow is the title. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Can you flow? Can you flow shallow showdowns from your past? Are occupying your flowetry. Can you flow? Flow with me? Cast some words in the air and let them fly. Fly with me as you see the title and as you feel the flow. It's about everything you know. His story, her story, and humanity defined. There is a divine amongst the twine and throughout the grapevine of grief, as many have the belief that words are full of deceit. Can you flow? Flow with a man who perceives serenity even with his eyes closed. Can you flow? I know the answer is on your mind and tasting the tip of your tongue. Can you flow in this love as long as I can? Fall into these arms, woman, as I fall deep into yours. If the flow reaches you and begins to pulsate, then I am on my way to your heart. Can you flow with me and show me every piece of your heart? So I truly do know what keeps you alive and well. Hold on. Here we go. And you will be spellbound at times because I know your heart better than mine. A poetic pulse. Thank you. So, sorry, my old man eyes. I'm trying to read all that. Usually, I gotta have it printed out and everything. But that's what I'm talking about. Poetry. What it does for me is it just lets me. It's a like I call it temple sensation, if that's a word. And it just kind of just eases my mind, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. I try to stay away from the ugly things, because I think that personally we have to control our vibe. So if we're allowing ugly things to be occupying our thoughts, and that's not good. So try to kind of rebound and forget about all that ill will. So and I like romance. I like the romance of you know I like that beat. I like things like that. I love Teddy Pendergrass. I love Howard Hewitt. And it goes on and on. Little Barry White, Marvin Gaye. And I don't think Marvin Gaye ever went outside love, other than maybe some troubles in his life, or and every now and then a political stand. From one or two of his albums. So. But those are the musicians I like, along with Brian Coblestone, and a few others. Tavares, our only homegrown people. So go ahead.
I can honestly say I wore out their single "More Than a Woman" when I was in fourth grade. I digested that entire arrangement, and I wasn't even playing an instrument yet. Just that the way they tackled that song.
It's
so yeah, much love and respect. And at the time, I didn't even know that they were a New Bedford.
Yeah.
Okay. Entity. So it was like then sort of the double discovery. Oh, okay. Well, one of the, if it's okay, I can actually
go ahead.
Do a piece.
Yeah, sure.
So sinking into the back seat. Long wide time, seatbelts weren't a thing at that point. And little kids, they're folks now in their 40s who know what it is to stand up on the back seat so you could see out the front window of the car. Well, my brother had a Charger and he had a GTO. These were the two of the cars that I remember from when I was a kid. But the thing that I remember most about his car was that his car was part of my music education. Because he had one of the most amazing sound systems to this day that I've ever encountered in a vehicle. I believe he had 8 speakers running through the system. I don't even know why he bothered with a subwoofer, because he'd always turn the bass down. When I got older, that would be our argument, because I'm cranking the bass up and down. But a part of my music education was listening to the Delphonics, listening to Earth, Wind and Fire. Keep your head to the sky. Part of my music education was flowing with the back seat, flowing with the clean up your act. Come on and clean up your act. Don't hold me back. Part of my music education was ball bounce to the ounce. Part of my music education was more than a woman. More than a woman to me. Part of my music education took place in the backseat of the GTO. Listening to that sound system, having those sounds travel through, understanding how violins could intermingle with basses and basses could intermingle with drums. All of this happened in the back with the hum of the engine in front. Coolest ride I could remember, just sitting back in the summertime, windows open, and having concerts going on right there in the seat, because that was part of my music education. Part of my music education was the Shy Lights. Oh, girl, I'd be in trouble if you left me now. Oh, part of my music education, Mother, mother, there's too many of you crying all part and parcel of my music education taking place in the back seat of a GTO.
I love it, man. I got some great visuals. You recited it, so lucidly for me to because I was that same kid,
Mm-hmm.
and same kid where you would just be in the back seat, those bench seats, and jumping back and forth and get your feet off my seats, and it just amazing. But
And another thing was summertime. You appreciated if your parents had cloth seats.
mm-hmm.
Unless,
Mm-hmm.
of course, they were black.
Yep.
Because think of the number of times somebody sat down on they went to the beach.
Mm-hmm.
Parents had leather seats.
Mm-hmm.
You're out there in the beach. You come in your wet bathing suit. You sit down on that seat. Steam is coming up off your behind, and your legs are now glued to the seat because now it's seared flesh. Those leather seats. Man.
So true. So true.
Now, see, that's the funny when we talk about poetic conversation.
Mm-hmm.
When I teach poetry, one of the first assignments that I give my students, and this might even be something for listeners.
Mm-hmm.
First assignment I give them is pick a color. Don't tell me what the color is.
Yep.
Pick a color. Okay, now I want you to describe that color to somebody who was born visually impaired.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And what I explain is you use the other senses.
Yes.
You can't see it, but what does yellow smell like?
Mm-hmm.
What does yellow taste like?
Yeah.
What does yellow feel like?
Mm-hmm.
What does it sound like? What is red? What is blue? And when you have to then think about these colors in that other way, that is really what poetry is.
Yes.
Because with the piece, that's called, by the way, that piece is called My Brother's GTO.
Mm-hmm.
With that piece, I'm trying to recreate the sounds and the smells and the feelings,
Mm-hmm.
and even the tactile of being small enough that you can stand up on the back seat.
Yes.
And that experience that, yeah, if you're only of a certain age,
Mm-hmm.
you'd know that. Because one of the things I think is sad for kids in Mashpee, Halloween is the only time you get to experience riding in the bed of a pickup.
Mm-hmm.
That's illegal now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And with good reason.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm thinking of, as a kid, how many, times I rode from Mashpee to Provincetown, or Mashpee to Hyannis,
Mm-hmm.
or Mashpee to Plymouth in the back of a pickup truck.
So true.
I remember a friend of mine and a cousin both remembering a time when one of the elders picked them up at the pond
Mm-hmm.
and took them to a powwow in Long Island, and they rode all the way to Long Island in the back of a pickup truck. So that means they rode through like 3 states.
Yeah. Definitely.
In the back of a pick. But the thing is, that exhilaration
Mm-hmm.
is something that the only time kids of this younger generation, when I say younger generation, like my son who's 20,
Yeah.
he got to ride in the back of a pickup truck. Halloween, they didn't really mind.
Mm-hmm.
Treat it like a hayride.
Yeah.
But that's the only time they get that experience. When you think about, Gen X.
Yep. Yep.
We know that exhilaration.
Mm-hmm. We had my brother and I had a good experience in jumping in the back seat of a Malibu. Well, not the back seat, sorry, the trunk of a Malibu to get into the drag racing.
Okay.
And so, you had to, you paid, and, so we jumped in, and it was amazing because thinking we're the only ones that did it. As we got into the grounds, back trunk opened, and there was many people jumping out of trunks.
Yep.
And
used to see that at the drive-in movie.
Yeah, yep, exactly. Right here in Fairhaven, Mass. We did it. It's so it's there's so many flashbacks, especially when I see the sign on Route 6 and see the Fairhaven driving. You see that sign, and to really look at it, and that sign's older than most people driving by it. And if it could speak and tell tales, be an amazing story.
Well, this is it.
Yes.
It's funny to drive by places on the Cape because two of the drive-in, one reopened as a drive-in during
Mhm.
the pandemic. The one in Yarmouth,
Okay.
the one way up in Wellfleet remained a drive-in. And it even has like a regular cinema attached to it, but
Oh,
they still
nice.
have their drive-in. But the old Falmouth drive-in is now the Falmouth Lumberyard,
Mm,
and the Hyannis drive-in is now a Stop and Shop.
I love it. Mm.
But
See, this is the poetry we're talking about, right?
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, flashback. We have Diane. I see you out there commenting, and yeah, that was some good singing there. I really do enjoy my buddy here. He's singing. Let's see. What are the other comments?
Thank you, Diane. Thank you.
Yeah, Diane is. She says, "Sing, my brother, sing."
Oh, appreciate it. Thank you.
And we got another comment here, Sandra Doyle saying, "Hey there, my friend. How you doing, Sandy? I miss you. Got to stop by your place in employment very, very soon. It may be, I don't know, maybe this week. I have to go see your friend, your good friend, and return something to her." Got Joey Gonzalez. I see you, Joey. Always there to support myself and the station, and now he's here to support you, Wally.
All right.
And,
All right.
the you talk about that assignment, and that's something I can relate to. I would because it's creative, so it would push me, it would get me motivated,
Mm.
it would really get me. All right, I can do this. I can do this. And by the way, my color would be red or black.
Okay.
So those are the two colors, and probably for that assignment, to red would be, it wouldn't be challenging, but if I had a choice, I would love to choose.
Well, thanks to Hawaiian Punch, red has a flavor.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks to Hawaiian Punch and Kool-Aid,
Mm-hmm.
red is a flavor.
Yeah. Yep. It's so true. Right, Kool-Aid. The preferred Kool-Aid drink.
Here we go.
Diane, we love you too, and we're gonna continue with this conversation here.
Yeah.
Let me see. I'm trying to think of the year, but anyway, several years ago, I came on this radio station. Was a guest of the Wind Down podcast,
Mm.
and they had me recite some poetry. And till this day, I mean, I constantly listening to it, especially when I'm trying to get motivated, and just checking our messages here.
Mm.
By the way, if you want to come on the air with us, the phone lines are right down there on the bottom, 774-425-2631. And don't forget to add WNB1 radio to your devices, Apple or Android, and you can listen to us 24 hours, 7 days out of the week. We're always jamming here. You might have some recommendations that you want to play on a rotation. Send them in. Get on the website, WNB1.com, and send a message or do it through the app. Johnny Baptiste, I see you, man. Haven't been on air for a while. Yeah, you haven't, but I get it, man. You're busy. You're paying TO. You got your little nieces and nephews, right? I believe, and you're doing your thing. Great to hear your voice again. I got to call you. I did speak to your uncle, and I definitely got to, give him another call and talk to him. I owe him some kachupa. I gotta bring it by. So it looks like that's gonna have to happen this Saturday coming up. All right. So let me just make sure I put our title up there. We want to be known. Poetic Conversations with Dr. DaPhunkee Professor, and myself. We are here to just give you a little taste of what we have as far as conversation, and everything's poetic. We're gonna talk about a few things, and the first subject we're gonna talk about is gatekeeping. So I'm gonna let you kind of lead the way on this one, all right?
Oh,
And then we'll go from there. We'll see where the conversation goes. Hopefully, we have some interaction with the audience out there, and feel free listen. And you want to chime in, put your comments in the comment section, and I will definitely put it across the screen, and I will read it so the listeners on the radio station can hear what your question is. So
well, can I be controversial or do I have to be political?
no, we this is WMB1 radio. You just be you,
All right, just be me.
be
Okay.
you, and we're gonna do this, our way. We're gonna do it our way. We
All right. Well, let's talk about the interesting irony of hypocrisy.
hypocrisy.
America is the land of freedom.
Hmm.
America is the land of opportunity, but America is built completely on gatekeeping
Yes.
because America is a mercantile based social system, and America was one of the first nations to actually build itself upon the construct of white supremacy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I say that, the first thing we want to talk about is eugenics.
Mm-hmm.
And Blumenbach and his theory on the skull found in the Caucasus Mountains was obviously that of a Caucasian, and somehow this tied into the Nordic people found in Germany and Britain. So, but one of the first places where people of British and Germanic extraction were those here in the colonies in the early 1700s, where it was the beginning of referring to yourself as a Caucasian.
Mm-hmm.
John Hancock and Company.
Mm-hmm.
And this was embraced to the point that the fact that the United States is the first nation to have legal definitions of race and race based on ethnicity. Because prior to that, race was based on national place of origin.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
the meaning switched up along with eugenics. Now, why do we have legal definitions of race? Well, that was because that was to determine the haves from the have nots,
Mm-hmm.
or more especially the owners from the owned.
Mm-hmm.
So if you read the early documents of the late 1600s in Virginia, for example, which then were subsequently codified as the federal laws, this is why particularly Africans were chattel slavery,
Mm-hmm.
because that's part of the charter document of Virginia
Yes.
from the 1690s. Gatekeeping.
Yeah. Gatekeeping.
So the structure of gatekeeping has always been, now what I also need to take us to is when we look at, now part of the gatekeeping and the construct of the superiority of white people included certain social constructs, for example, the advanced lessons of the Greeks.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Greeks were actually people of color, but they were claimed because of the fact that they were the keepers of the advanced understanding that they stole from Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
But be that as it may, the Greek or the classic system and the classic structure, which shaped in antiquity what the Europeans saw as the classic structure,
Yes.
um, this now again becomes part of the gatekeeping. Now, one of the legends or theories from the Greek side is the bed of Epicrustes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the bed of Epicrustes was at the foot of the city of Athens. And according to the legend, you would lay in this bed and any part of you that didn't fit would be cut off.
Mm-hmm.
And this was so that everybody entering the city of Athens was this perfect size, perfect shape. Well, gatekeeping, we now create these standards. Now, the standards might have absolutely nothing to do with the people that the standards are being applied to, and the reason being,
Mm-hmm.
again, the haves from the have nots, the owners from the owned. So if you have these qualities, you're the owner. If you have those qualities, you're the owned. And if you have that third set of qualities, you now work for the owner.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes, working for the owner, keeping at bay the owned.
Amazing.
Now, we divide this up, gatekeeping. Modern times, we talk about conservatives and we talk about liberals.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the biggest mistakes made is when they confuse liberals with leftists. Let's go back to the period of slavery. You had people who believed in slavery. You had people who believed in improving the conditions of slavery. And then you had the people who wanted to abolish it altogether because they saw it as evil.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's move forward to modern political times. Those who believed in slavery are the conservatives. Those who believed in improving the conditions of slavery are the liberals. And those who wanted to abolish it altogether are now the leftists. The gatekeeping.
Yep. It's same philosophy, different titles.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's amazing that, and this is what I like about talking and again, educated, listen and learn. I always do that. Listen and learn. Listen and learn. I see something that kind of caught my eye, and I'm trying to pass it on to someone else because, um, and I also got to practice what I preach. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very important. It's something that my dad was kind of given to me since when I was about 15. You know, we only had a few years together. You know, as far as living together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you know, and it was good, bad, and ugly. But some of the crazy things that he would teach, you know, tell me is was theory without practice, and they usually use that when I said I can't do this, can't do that, not able to do this, not able to do that, and he would always say, you know, try it, you know,
Mm-hmm.
do it, um, and it's even writing. I didn't even know he was writing until I got to that age.
Mm-hmm.
And he caught me writing, and he said, "You're writing," and he checked it out, and that was it. And we found something in common, and he started showing me a lot of stuff that he had done that has now been lost. And so, but to get back to what you're talking about, it's so many people practice and throw so many things out there, but they don't know anything about what they're talking about. They don't practice what they preach, from all aspects of life in all different areas, and even religion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, uh, religion is it's weird how some people have practiced so many different things, and they're the most evilest people in the world. Uh, and it has me on guard a lot when I'm talking about that. You mentioned about different aisles of the political aisles, and it's amazing that they have short memories. You know, no one seems to have long memories anymore when it comes to politics.
Well, one of the realities that we don't necessarily acknowledge is that politics once upon a time were just that.
Mm-hmm.
What we actually have are social ideologies represented by politics.
Mm-hmm.
When the social ideologies of white supremacy and racism was part of the democratic structure, then the Democratic Party, that the Dixiecrats,
Mm-hmm.
and that began to shift.
Mm-hmm.
And when Nixon began to recognize that began to shift, he created what they called the Southern Strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, the Dixiecrats are now disgusted because the Democrats have become integrated. So what we're going to let them know is that you become a Republican, we're going to be home for your ideology. So this is how you created now this other branch of conservatism. Because if you think about it, the Nixon and the post-Nixon Republicans are not quite like the Eisenhower
Yeah, true.
Republicans.
True,
If
true,
you think
true.
about that, you think about Republicans of old, and it's you look especially like at even Eisenhower. This was somebody who was military, and you look at him, and it's like, wow, he was milk toast compared
Mm-hmm.
to
Yeah.
when we start getting onto the Bushes and
Mm-hmm.
Reagan and company. So it's the social ideology disguised as politics,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what we're looking at. When you're looking at a campaign run on Make America Great Again, what exactly is he pointing to? Yes, he's pointing to the Reconstruction era.
Mm-hmm.
That's the point, because what he's doing is spelling out when America did this, when America did
Mm-hmm.
that. And I'm listening to when, the point that he's talking about. I'm like, well, let's see, slavery was still in place.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Women didn't have the right to vote. Yeah, that's what you see as the great era. Okay.
Mm.
When you take a picture to honor two living veteran code talkers, and you decide you're going to take a picture with them in front of a portrait of Andrew Jackson,
Mm-hmm.
the Indian killer.
Yeah.
That's not by accident.
Mm-hmm.
That's where all of the portraits hanging up. That's where you're going to take that picture.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
again, this speaks to, as I like to refer to, the dog whistle ideology.
Mm-hmm. Some people, they say it on the Wind Down podcast about they did. Perception is some people's reality, and
The other thing sometimes becomes, with gatekeeping comes a point of conditioning where we maintain gates that aren't even there anymore
mm-hmm.
because we've been taught that's the gate.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, the theory of, if the monkey just let the banana go,
Mm-hmm.
or, okay, you're not really sitting in a box, those are some lines drawn on the ground, but you were taught that those lines drawn on the ground were a box and you can't leave that box.
Mm-hmm.
So we keep those lines there ourselves.
Yeah.
And we'll pretend that that's tradition. Well, yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
tradition, but it's not a tradition that serves us.
Yeah.
It's something that so we end up maintaining gates. We end up maintaining social gates. When we maintain social gates, um, because of the structure of white supremacy. Some of the biggest white supremacists I know are from our community, not even from the white
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
community. But our folks have so ingrained the notion of, this is the supreme, this is the superior,
Mm-hmm.
this is the pinnacle, this is
Yeah.
what you must reach for. That's what they basically will, so that's what they decide is, okay, this is what we need to go, this is how we need to go for it.
True.
And now that tradition, some of the most brutal overseers on the plantation were black folks given a whip.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
An unfortunate reality. But sometimes we become like the oppressor and not our own.
Mm-hmm.
So that too becomes part and parcel of the gatekeeping. That, in fact, is the efficacy. A lot of people don't realize that the Willie Lynch letter is a metaphor, not an actual document
Mm-hmm.
written by somebody named
Yeah.
Willie Lynch, but it's a metaphor, and the metaphor is about how you condition the mind. You don't need to enslave the slave, you enslave the slave's mind. And if you enslave the slave's mind, you've now got generations of slaves.
So true.
And so it becomes a process of sort of reprogramming ourselves around the concept of the gatekeeper. In the present, there is not a gatekeeper you can't walk around.
Mm-hmm.
But we're conditioned to believe, oh, that's the way through, so that's
Yeah.
what I have to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like, oh, you're gonna let me in? Okay, never mind. I can go 3 feet in either direction, walk around you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they ain't gonna chase you.
This is it.
It won't chase you because you know what? There's people on the other side of the gate that are just minding their manners.
Mhm.
So if they're gonna let some, 3 or 4 to go on their own business and stray away, that's fine. They still have hundreds and hundreds and thousands of people that are behind the gate.
Mhm.
It's the conversation of our own people kind of suppressing us. There's a documentary, and I don't want to quote it, but because I'm going to get it wrong, but about light skin and dark skin,
Mhm.
and that was just the one thing that there was so much reality in that, but I got a taste. When I was checking out the whole documentary, now I started thinking of situations here in New Bedford way back when, between Cape Verde and West Indies people, and there was just, where Cape Verdeans were saying they were Portuguese, and there was a division here, especially 60s into the 70s. It was a strong division um, until until some great people decided to fight for the independence that goes beyond way before 1975. It took a long process, um, and so anyways, so the gatekeeping is it's so real what you're talking about, and there's also some gatekeeping on a lower level, when it comes to employment, right?
Yeah.
Uh, um,
I can tell you from personal experience.
yeah, and it's funny. When I did leave the job, I thought I was good. I thought I was going to be able to move in a lot of directions and go to a lot of different agencies and kind of just jump in and start over, and that wasn't so due to a lot of gatekeeping. And it didn't matter who I spoke to, and I spoke to people that were cutting grass to people that were in the office. And it just didn't matter, regardless of what they did and wrote for me on my behalf. I couldn't get over that. I couldn't get over that obstacle. And I don't want to mention any names, but we are in the building. My man, this is your blood that's in the building. Well, we're in the building, and he's in the building too. Ziggy, my man, hey, you're next. You're next. We got a seat for you too, there. So we're gonna bring your inspirational voice and intellect to the podcast too.
He was just actually engineering a session at Polyphonic.
Oh,
That's why he wasn't able to join us today.
okay. Well, we're ready for you. We are ready. That's another. You made a good human being. I just want to let you know. You did a good job with that young man.
Oh, thank you.
He is inspirational. All right, so
and shout out to Kearney Academy, because that's where he started out in school.
Kearney Academy. You know what? And people don't realize it, right? You think about every school in the city is, whether it's Alpha J. Gomes Elementary School, which I'm wearing right now. You can't see it, but schools, and they all have a person's name, and then the school, the word school. When you kind of think about Kearney, they didn't say Kearney Elementary, Kearney Academy, right?
Because of Dr. Waters.
Yeah, and when you look at you hear that, yeah, it's like
academy carries a completely different sensibility.
Sure does.
than the term school.
Sure does.
And that's part of what I mean. What he was doing was he was prepping people to break down gates. Because the minute you have access to the academy, you're getting an education.
Yes.
And that's what Dr. Waters provided, and down to the point that remained the legacy of that school.
Yep.
I can say the teachers that he had all the way from like pre-K. We moved back to Mashpee when he started third grade.
Yeah.
But he had amazing teachers. He had, for kindergarten, he had Ms. Gordon. He had Ms. Montero before she retired.
I remember the names.
Karen Tremblay, I believe, was
Treadup. Yep.
Treadup. She was the principal at the time. Ross Grace was the assistant principal.
Miss Pina was there.
Yeah.
Pina.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, he had. So he had a good foundation.
Yep. Miss Senna.
And also
many.
And also, by the way, his after school place was Sonny's place.
Yes. Okay.
Right there with Miss Jackie.
Yes.
So,
yes.
So New Bedford gave him a good foundation in the early days.
Carney
his
Academy.
early days, and why he still feels like this.
Yeah, and man, the stories.
Yeah,
But
but
when
but
you
but now,
mention, go ahead.
I was gonna say, but when we talk about gatekeeping, what we especially have to look at is the tenacity of the individuals who crack the gates.
Mm-hmm.
Like we are both we are both alumni of Jabril Kazan.
Yes.
That's a gate smasher,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
and that's that's beyond the sit-in.
Mm-hmm.
He was a gate smasher.
Yeah.
The influence that he had upon those that he taught those that he reached, his influence. This is a gate smasher. The
Mm-hmm.
intellectual challenges that he presented to people,
Yes.
gate smashing.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about it, this city is a history of gate smashing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting to see some of the things that we come up against, because right now, it's funny to see how you get waves of things. When I was living in the Bronx just before I moved back,
Mm-hmm.
this would have been around 2001, 2002, 2000, early 2003. I was living in New York City.
Mm.
What I began to see was gentrification,
Yes.
and didn't realize what was happening was artists traditionally have been used as the battering ram of gentrification. And it's largely because artists will live anywhere because,
Mm-hmm.
so economics, space availability, etc. So therefore, okay, you have a bunch of abandoned lofts. You have a bunch of people who are like, oh, I need a space like that so I can do my artwork.
Mm-hmm.
So you end up with a squatter culture living
Yes.
in the lofts. Well, now what happens is the lofts get padlocked so that then they can redesign the lofts, because now it's become trendy to live in lofts.
Mm-hmm.
So now all of a sudden the loft that somebody was living in for like $200 a month is now like $3,000 a month.
Yeah.
That's what they did in the Lower East Side of Manhattan. I watched them do it in Brooklyn. And when I was working in the Bronx, I realized this is the beginning of what they're trying to do here.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to turn the South Bronx into, and it was what just around the time that I came back here to teach at UMass, there were a bunch of warehouse loft spaces right over near the East River in the Bronx, near the Willis Ave Bridge.
Yes.
And you had a whole bunch of people who were renting them, and of course they had, you have like 1,800 square feet for $500, and they,
Mm-hmm.
put up walls, built themselves some nice little apartments, workspaces, living spaces. Well, what happens is this is under Giuliani.
Yeah.
They decide, oh, you can't live in these. These aren't
Mm-hmm.
fit to live in. We have to evacuate. You have to leave. You have to
Yeah.
move out. Well, yeah, they move them all out. They spend about $20,000 in putting in a sprinkler system. And now, oh, sure, you can have the space back, but it'll cost you about $3,000 for what you were paying.
True. Wow.
And that was, and so when I really realized how, I remember I'd gone back to New York after living up here for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you got to that stoplight to cross the Willis Ave Bridge, the stoplight was optional.
Yeah.
That was like Carjack Central.
Yeah.
So I get to that stoplight, and I'm old school Bronx, so I'm like looking both ways.
Mm-hmm.
Get to that light. All of a sudden, I see a white woman jog by with a baby carriage. So that is the first part that was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And as I'm watching that, my eyes then follow to a latte coffee shop in the hub of a set of buildings that had been like basically boarded up since I was a little kid.
Yeah.
So realizing, okay, this neighborhood has changed dramatically.
Yes.
And it became, so it became the Bronx waterfront.
Mhm.
All that stretch along the Bronx River that was nothing but like the cement plant and wild dogs, now was all of a sudden waterfront activity,
Yeah.
and realized that, so it was like, and I see that's exactly what they're doing here.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what they're doing to New Bedford. And what they're doing is making it somewhat, they're trying to make it inaccessible. So that becomes
true.
part of the game of gatekeeping.
We
And,
have a friend of yours, Gregory says, turn up the volume, Mr. Morgan.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that might be a little bit better.
Yeah.
What's good, Greg?
He says gate smashing is
See, I have to tell you, Greg is my best friend.
no cool.
He's also Zig's godfather.
Nice.
We met our freshman year at Boston University.
Very nice.
and we were smashing gates at BU.
Oh,
When he was with Latinos Unidos, and I was the president of Umoja,
nice.
and we were challenging. We were going off campus and challenging the governor and
Yeah, see
things
that?
like that. So glad to see Greg on board.
Yeah, and it's good you mentioned that because
Oh wait, my whole crew is on. There's Ray Ramos also. The
Yep.
academy nurtured and educated some of the best and brightest. Yeah,
let's put
agreed.
that up here.
Definitely agreed.
Yeah, Ray comes from a good family of gate smashers.
There you go.
know, and they did their thing.
Her brother Phil is a Groovalato too, but
Yep.
yeah, so,
Yeah.
so,
Yep. He's
and she's actually our manager. So
yes, I remember her well.
Yeah.
That's cream of the crop there. Ray is impressive. Impressed me from day one.
Mhm.
And so follow her lead, and I think she's very, very good at what she does.
Yeah. That kind of takes. Let's talk about some of the gate smashing we doing.
All right.
We doing some gate smashing.
Yes, we are. Groovalatos are doing some gate smashing because guess what? The gates wasn't being open for you, right?
No, well, I mean, the Groovalatos, I guess you could say, were sort of like the first point of contact because a whole lot grew out of the Groovalatos.
Yes.
It started out as give you the rundown. The Groovalatos started out as a jam session in a garage in Wareham.
Yes.
And now gate smashing. I had just escaped my contract. Billy Atkins, who professionally played out as Eddie Ray Johnson, had been a touring drummer for years and had just escaped that. James Wolfe, who started out as a guitar player for Motown Studios, touring blues player.
Yes.
He was trying to smash some gates. And it was basically just sort of like we were trying to return to our music. And that was how that started. And then we started playing out. And it became an interesting divide because one of the ethos factors that Billy and I had in common, being black and brown musicians in southeastern Massachusetts, more especially the Cape Cod area.
Yes.
I still have nightmares of playing the keyboard part to Jump from Van Halen. Because that was part of the experience of being, if you were going to play in a band in these parts back in the 80s, that's what you were going to play.
True.
And you only got to, and it was like, you guys were lucky. Y'all had Tavares and bands like here in New Bedford, out on the Cape.
Yeah.
It wasn't like that. And even if you ended up getting to play a gig on the Cape, it was normally with one of the rock bands down here in New Bedford. But what became the divide was that it was finally like, wow, I'm playing with another musician who grew up listening to Parliament Funkadelic. Wow, And so we're singing tunes back and forth that James Wolfe has no idea what we're talking about.
True.
And this is how the Groovalatos then basically sort of became a brother band, was that we were kind of like, you really, really need to understand the music. And it sort of evolved that way. One of the conversations we had is that a band is a philosophy, not the players.
And you mentioned about, at least in New Bedford, we had the Bomb Shelter, the band club, and which was good back then because you felt safer in your neighborhood, right? And traveling to some of the parts that you mentioned wasn't a good thing sometimes. And then we had our own little riffs and battles and so on and so forth.
Here came the interesting dynamic of being from Mashpee.
Yeah.
We kind of went anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
because I remember one of my young hangout day experiences coming to New Bedford and standing in front of the main event when somebody got thrown through the window. And it wasn't me, but
Yeah.
but yeah, the experience, the tie together experience. What I was saying with the Groovalados, it was sort of like a lot of what grew out of the Groovalados came out of that step around the gatekeeper.
Yeah.
Um, when we recorded our album Ask Your Mama, there was a recording studio in Plymouth owned by the late great Bob Yen called MD. Well, it was MDI when we started. It became
I
Earwork
remember that.
by the time we left. Well, Bob passed away and the studio was closing.
Hmm.
So there needs to be a studio like that. And by now one of Bob's best proteges was playing bass for us, Chuck B.
Yep.
And he's an amazing engineer, has 12 Grammy nomination credits to him. 6 of them are from us. And so it was kind of like, okay, so he took what he learned from MDI. I took what I knew from the classic studios, and we opened Polyphonic Studios. Grew out of the Groovalados, but grew out of the necessity of there needed to be a recording studio that understood the breadth and depth of
Yeah.
music in the area. Realizing that, okay, big shout out to the band Funktopus. They host a jam session on Wednesdays on the Cape up at the music room. But realizing you have all of these musicians off Cape between Wareham and New Bedford and Brockton. So what did we do? We found a place in Onset where we can have a jam.
Hmm.
Again, get past the gatekeeping. Okay, this isn't happening here. Great, we can do this here. Because, if you go by the gatekeepers, there are only really 2 jazz musicians in New Bedford.
Yeah.
If you go by the gatekeeping. But what we do is, here's an opportunity.
I'm sorry I'm laughing.
I'm sorry, it's true.
It is.
But you step around the gatekeeping. The whole thing that Zig started doing, the
Mhm.
thump and soul session, the underground dance music. Now, first of all, we got to say, we have the beautiful thing is that's a movement. That's not alone. That it's well, I can get to that part in a second. But what's
Yeah.
really cool is I have to first give a shout out to the New Moon Dance Party folk who throw the body the first Saturday of the
Mhm.
month down at the Co-Creative. It is beautiful that they're doing that.
Yeah.
I remember the underground. Give you just my history. I remember the underground dance music scene was the safe haven
Yes.
in New York City. New York City in the mid '80s, as you know, it was crazy. But the club that you could go to where you didn't have to worry about getting shot, didn't have to worry
Mhm.
about getting robbed, didn't have to worry about any number of things, was always going to be that underground dance club. The Paradise. I remember called myself sneaking into the Paradise Garage when I was 16. And of course, the experience there was not just, okay, a safe space, but the way the music hit me.
True.
Listening to Larry Levan's mix.
Mhm.
And so the underground dance scene, the house music clubs, and the whole thing of going to clubs and bringing conga drums and djembes and playing along and having clubs like that where, okay, there's house music, but now the music comes back and there are poets getting up, rocking poetry over the house music.
Yep.
And over the Afro beat and over the jazz.
Sounds like a plan.
That was a scene that I became used to. In the mid '90s,
Yep.
And in the late '90s, that was the New York scene, that was DC, that was Boston, and then that began to sort of die out.
True.
And so seeing that the thing is, you realize it's really funny when you have, you realize you'll sometimes reminisce around your kids.
Mhm.
I remember this, I remember this, I remember this, and you don't realize as they start to build stuff. Hey, that looks like the thing I told you about that we used to go to in Brooklyn. Oh, wait, you're doing this. Oh, wait, you're doing that. And so it's fun to see him bring that back with the Thump and Soul session and the fact that there is a bridge construct where it's New Moon Dance Party are our people. Those are our allies. They've got a beautiful thing happening.
Yep.
And we support it. We were there the other night. And guess what? When we do our thing next Saturday, they're going to be there.
Yeah.
they're going to be there with us supporting it, because guess what? We're both doing underground dance music, but we're doing it from two different angles.
Mm-hmm.
That's a more, I would say, encompassing.
Yeah.
With the Thump and Soul session, we're digging more into the black music side, that tradition. It's open to everybody. Everybody is welcome.
Yeah.
But in terms of ethos, this is being coming from the tradition fostered by your Larry Levans.
Mm-hmm.
If we get to the more contemporaries, your Ian Fridays, your Bob Diesels, your Courtney Grays.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to see him keeping that tradition going on third Saturdays.
It's
And
very important.
and
Very, very important.
and go and you know and getting into spaces like Gallery X,
Mm-hmm.
and gatekeeping when the Groovalados were
Shout out to Sean Fitzgerald, man.
Oh,
Fitzy, you're doing a great job.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
And and definitely, I'm thinking about when the Groovalados, when we came out with our first album, it was very difficult. It was actually said to us by the manager of one of the bars, well, maybe you need to add some white people to your band.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was rather difficult for an all black or brown band
Yeah.
to get booking, even though it was a trio,
Mm-hmm.
getting bookings on the Cape. Well, the thing was, we now had an album out. And not only that, we had an album with a national radio campaign, still not getting bookings on the Cape.
Wow.
So here's what we did. We reviewed free speech laws
Mm-hmm.
and started performing on street corners.
Yep.
And next thing we know, our album has 4 Grammy nominations based on people who bought the album off the street in Provincetown.
We got to talk about that.
And then
we definitely got to talk about that eventually.
So we did that. We did that just as a test, and it was sort of like that was how Provincetown became kind of a home base for it.
Mm-hmm.
Because here was the funny thing we also discovered: we make more money playing out on the street with a bucket than we ever made playing in a bar, and in less time.
Yeah.
One night in particular, we played across the street from this bar called the Way Downtown. Now, the year before we played the Way Downtown, you play there for like 3-4 hours, and they're going to try to give you $300.
Yeah.
We played across the street from the Way Downtown for about an hour and a half, and we made close to $1,000. We were shutting down and closing up while the band was getting there, and we played for maybe an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And we began to realize that, okay, it's catch as catch can. Because the next day you might go out there and play for hours and make $200. You might go another day, you make, it's being in business.
Yes.
And also, by the way, this was how, when Zig said he wanted to go in the music business, this was how I introduced him to the music business. Take your instrument, take a bucket, go play on the street and see how much money you make. Because that really is the music. That really, in a nutshell, is what the music business is.
Yeah.
From its very foundation.
And so many greats have started the same way.
Yeah.
Quincy Jones, people don't realize it. It's where he started, and
this is it. Stanley, the guitarist, Stanley Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
He was literally discovered playing on a street corner, right in front of the offices for oh Lord. He was playing right in front of the offices for EMI Records.
Okay. Man. Let me see. We're gonna take a music break, right?
All right.
Everyone, you're listening to WNB1 Radio. We're gonna take a music break. We're gonna come right back. I'm gonna play a song here, Earth, Wind, and Fire. But we're gonna kind of go in the back room, drink some water, come back before the song is over. And then we're going to kind of talk about the rebirth and the underground scenes in New England. All right. So just mind you, and Facebook has some community standards. And so you're going to be muted a little bit on Facebook Live, but we will be back. It's an old school song, so it takes about 4 minutes, So come right back. And me and my boy, my friend, I'm sorry to call you boy, man. It's just that
it's meant in the endearing
colloquial sense. It is.
Not a problem.
Yeah. All right.
It's accepted with the love it's intended. So no.
So we'll be right back. We're going to take a break. I'm going to mute you off of Facebook, and like I said, there's some standards with Facebook, so you can hear the music if you're on WNB1.com.
See, now if you played Planet Rock, we could go up the street and get a sandwich.
Yeah, yeah. There's actually all right. Let's cancel that music break. All right. Feel free. You want to go back, get some water, you can do that. I actually, I really want to. When you talked about the rebirth of the underground, scenes and remember last week we talked about the scene, scenery, and let's start off with that, right?
Yeah.
And we'll kind of blend it into, the rebirth and of these underground scenes here. Let me put this up so everyone knows what we're talking about. Building a scene here in New Bedford. There's a scene, and then we want to build. We want to kind of walk around the garden, right? See what's needed. Something sounding like a groovalato, something sounding like Zig, something sounding like maybe Charlie Perry in the corner over there. And as we went around the garden, you started seeing things blossom like WNB1 Radio. And what they're doing, from podcast shows to hip hop music 24 hours, 7 days out of the week. So you actually creating an app so community can go to. And also it's Black and Latino owned, right? The one thing I like about, all of that, planting the seeds that need to be planted. They're starting to grow, and they're starting to grow bigger and better than a lot of other things in the garden, right? Or equal to it, and then now there's an intermingling, right? Groovalados with Gallery X.
Well, that's the funny thing.
Yep.
The Gallery X piece, Groovalados gave birth to a side project that is more around electronic music.
Yes.
Groovalados are more around natural instruments, more like that sort of old school soul funk, where that James Brown, Curtis Mayfield, Charles Wright kind of funk. But a little bit ago I was talking about the Paradise Garage. There is that side that's about that house music, underground breakbeat, rare groove. Let's break out the drum machines and the synthesizers kind of side, and that's the Wamptronica side, and that's really more what's happening now at Gallery X. Groovalados are more your Summertime by the Pier live band. We're your event band. We're your festival band. And it comes with growing up. I mean, we were a bar band, and we had a lot of fun as a bar band.
True.
But we've outgrown the bar band era. And it's not a matter of that we're disrespecting that. It's just that part of that is also realizing that as you progress to this, you can't really do that anymore. So that's when you now find the other pieces that can do that. So the Groovalados aren't going to play the little bar, but ZYG 808 might. Waleem DaPhunkee Professor might. Bishop the Shadow Man might.
Yes.
The smaller acts. The bars and clubs that maybe a live band can't fit into. Yeah, Wamptronica can play that. We can bring that kind of light. And the thing is, we can do the street corner thing too. One of the things we're talking about June 28th in Hyannis,
Yeah.
blocking as part of the Arts and Justice Festival. We're going to block off one of the parking lots, and we're going to have an outdoor roller rink.
Love it.
So
Hmm.
out there playing the old school boom
I love
kind
it.
of thing. But when we talk about a scene, you raised an excellent point. A scene is not a monolith.
Hmm.
A scene is a cooperative interaction.
Yeah.
That's what makes it a scene. This is like the difference between what is a monologue versus a play. Monologue is one person comes out and recites a speech. A play is an actual interaction. That's why it's
Yes.
called a play. Well, the same thing with a scene.
Hmm.
So you have your elements of a scene. So you have your WNB1. Your WNB1 is in the scene. The piece is what would be called the organ.
Yes.
It's the how do you get it out there? It's part of the scene are not just the artists, but it's sort of like we said with the Groovalatos. A band is the philosophy. Well, the
Mm.
same thing with the scene. The scene is the philosophy. What we want is an open, nurturing, organic space
Hmm.
to present art, to present our music.
True.
But not only that, we want it to be a space that we want it to be a safe space to enjoy the art.
Hmm.
I in my teens had it with the clubs where everybody's in there fronting and everybody's ready to jump on somebody
Hmm.
else. No, that's not my idea of a good time.
You
You
got
know,
that right.
and but the thing is, that's what I see. That's what I see some people
Hmm.
trying to bring back, and it's kind of like, yeah, maybe you should come out when you're feeling better.
Hmm. Yeah.
This isn't what this is about, and it's like that's not really a scene. No, it's a scene. It's a scene from a bad movie,
Hmm.
but in terms of cultivating a scene, like for example, one of the things I think about um, punk rock, New York punk rock, is an example. A scene grew out of a venue, but in part of it growing out of the venue was other venues began to spring up,
Mm.
other opportunities. You had this venue, CBGBs, you had these bands that played there, and the bands that played there were these sort of like very raw, very raucous,
Hmm.
angry bands, and they began to realize, okay, there's a common ethos. They have a similar political point of view, a similar social point of view. They all have similar socio-political backgrounds. So you begin to find this, and they all come and hang out here. And then as you begin to develop that little ethos, that culture,
Hmm.
part and parcel of a scene is the culture and the people in the interaction. And like one of the nuances when we think about underground scene development, underground scenes are communities.
Yeah.
And it's because the basis of that scene is the love of. If your initial motivation for a scene is the dollar, no.
Hmm.
And when I say the dollar, I don't mean that like, okay, you're charging some money to get in, or there's a reason that you're trying to raise funds, but it's more a matter of I can make a buck doing this rather than, oh yeah, I'm in this for the money.
Hmm.
If that becomes your motive, or if commerce is the center, that immediately is what kills the scene.
Yeah.
The love of is what has to create it. When hip hop started, hip hop was the love of,
Hmm.
and money came to some people. Money came to some people. Money never came. But the
Yeah.
thing is, what gave birth to it, what its vibrance came from the love of. And
Hmm.
so the beautiful thing about the underground music scene, you go to the underground scene in Cambridge you can go to Vermont, you can go, and what you're going to find is there's a considerable amount of love and respect between people.
Mm.
And you walk in, the thing of you walk into a house music scene, and there's a house music scene someplace else, and you might have flyers to your event.
Hmm.
They're gonna put your flyers right there at the front table. They're gonna, there's gonna be conversation. Their DJs might come play your party.
Hmm.
They might tell you, "Yeah, we got an open slot here if you want to come spin one night."
True.
And it's sort of, but it's a very different thing from, and I'm not even gonna say this is characteristic because it's often ascribed to hip hop, but it's not purely characteristic of.
Hmm.
But it is true. You go into some of these sets, and you looked at with scrutiny and suspicion from the minute you, oh, who are you, what are you doing? Da, da.
Yeah.
And you're looked, and if you're doing something similar, you're looked at as competition. Now, it doesn't even have to be the same venue, doesn't even have to be the same night, but automatically
Yeah.
you're a problem because you're doing something that looks a little bit like what I'm doing.
Now,
And
are you seeing that everywhere?
I'm sorry?
Are you feeling that everywhere?
Nah,
Okay.
nah.
Right.
I'm not, and it's kind of like where I feel that it's just kind of like, all right, chill.
Mm-hmm.
But the beautiful thing is you get people who see a bigger vision. So meeting you, coming, talking
Yeah.
to you, coming and talking to WMV1, the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
That was like, oh, well, here's my idea. Oh, here's my idea. Okay. Oh, cool. Wow. We have similar points of view. We have a
Yes.
similar vision. We have a similar goal. So let's see this happen.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like, oh, you're doing the same thing I am.
Yeah.
And we're not even doing the same thing. But, it's not even looking at it that way. It's going to Gallery X and saying, well, you have the space. These are the kinds of things we do. You don't have that happening here.
Mm-hmm.
Or, going to the folks' New Moon Dance Party. Well, oh, okay, so you do this the first Saturday? Well, we'll do ours the third.
Mm-hmm.
And, when we advertise theirs, they advertise ours. I mean, it's that kind of thing. We go to theirs, they come to ours. It's that kind of support because the way we see it, we're all the same group. We're all the same people.
True.
We're all we all have the same goal. We go to the party in we go to Sav Soul's party up in Cambridge.
Mm-hmm.
Same kind of thing. You go to the New England Underground. Same kind of vibe. The energy is, oh, cool. You're doing this. Good.
It's you mentioned about sharing and just kind of sharing each other's gigs and it's weird because that's always been like an artist can feel that an artist knows what needs to be done, right? And so a few years ago we had there was someone on my podcast and he talked about how, look, I understand that you're trying to support me on social media. I understand it. And you're clicking, I'm paraphrasing here, right? You're clicking like. What I need you to do is share it. We don't have the same friends. We may have a little bit of friends, but a majority of them are different. So if you share it, you're sharing it to another audience. So share. Just get away from that liking. You can like it, but there's another step to it, and I need you to share this. Share this event.
If you notice, I share your stuff all the time.
And the same here.
Because I know how that goes.
Yeah, and it's very, very important. Yeah. So when you're talking and you're saying all that, I'm like, I got a flashback to that podcast, and shout out to Brennan Gilmet, and he talked about the sharing and how important it was, and a great piece, that. In fact, I got to find that because he actually did post something that, and he really goes into it, really deep. And he's a person that doesn't kind of use social media like that. So when everyone seen him speaking or heard him speaking, boom, drew the attention to it. So.
I'm just saying, Donald Burgo talking about the jam sessions at the Piccadilly Lounge.
Oh yeah.
If you're available, hopefully you'll come to Bebo's in Onset this Saturday and come enjoy the jam session there. Yeah. Bebo's, by the way, for people who don't know, that years ago was a place called Valente's.
Yep. I remember that name.
And then it was Steve's, not to be confused with Stephen's Lounge.
Yeah, yep.
That was confused. I don't know why they would do that. You have a lounge called Stephen's Lounge that's been there forever. You have a space called Valente's, and then you're going to rename it Stevie's.
Yeah.
Right down the street from Stephen's. That made no sense whatsoever.
So many other things you could have done with that.
Oh yeah, that was really bad thinking. Marketing.
Yeah, Donald, there's definitely a jam session coming up this weekend, and at who are they? Bebo's, I believe that is on Onset Ave.
Yep.
And
that starts at 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock to 11. Yep. And
bring your instrument, and if your instrument requires an amp, bring your amp.
Yeah, I spoke to some kinfolks in Hyannis, and hopefully they can make it down there because
cool.
they are musicians, especially my cousin Charlie, who's very, very talented, and he did the same thing, traveling and doing different things. And I think this is just an opportunity that he can go and just feel good, and actually, I mean, he's playing. I don't know if it's a regular basis, but he's upstairs, but it's in his room, and this is a guy that definitely played in some decent crowds, and Charlie Pina, that's
Okay,
his
yeah.
name. Yep, and
Hopefully he comes through.
I hope so. I gotta. Jack Nagia says Dr. Waters was his principal and boss. That's true.
All right.
So Jack got two tails, two sides of it, Um, all right. Um, let's see what I got here.
It was funny because you were talking about division earlier,
Mm-hmm.
and some of the interesting things that happened during, I would say, primarily the transatlantic slave trade and how
Mm-hmm.
it carried over. You ended up at one point with a large population of folks from Barbados here,
Yeah.
and that's the island my mother's folks come from.
Mm-hmm.
One of the interesting points of history about Barbados was it was sort of like a training ground during the slave trade.
Mm.
Consequently, they did not focus on what they call shading. You were either property or you weren't.
Yeah.
And you had a large population of indentured servants from Scotland as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you ended up with also a lot of mixing. Consequently, shading is not as much a part of the mentality in Barbados. When I talk about shading, light skin versus
Yeah. Yep.
versus one of the unfortunate things that I saw in the Cape Verdean community is shading is a big where your dark skinned folks are not regarded
Mm-hmm.
the same as the light. And I remember on the Cape, I don't know if the same term was used here, but you had the folks who used to call young bobs on the Cape,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
who were
Yeah.
basically white presenting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that always sort of struck me as kind of like, how do you do that? You're all the same
Yeah.
folks, and in some cases the same family, and in some cases the same family line.
Mm-hmm.
But came to realize it was the interesting thing. Barbados was a training ground, but the Cabo Verde Islands were a way station,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and that was weird. And because of the fact that it was a way station, and you had a considerable amount of color consciousness because the Portuguese were highly aware that they were not white, although they were the ones who
Mm-hmm.
sort of even created the concept.
Yeah.
So this aspiration became part and parcel of the culture that was then imposed on folks.
Mm-hmm.
So it becomes then an interesting clash when you get here, where you have people of the same ethos, same family, same community, but have this shading.
Yeah. It was. The stories are amazing, and it's especially in this city, right?
Mm,
And but I was able to go from one area of the town to the next. It wasn't. But now, as I was getting older, right around that 17, 18 years old, um, started really getting aware of different things, and know where that comes from. Right, is from me taking off and leaving here for a while.
mm-hmm.
So when I did come back, I was like, "Wow, this is real." Um,
Mm-hmm.
wow, I never caught on to this. I didn't see it. I did, and now I see it.
It's like those commercials. You were nose blind.
Hmm. Yep. And it was amazing that how you may say, well, from people that were West Indies, and I couldn't figure out why are they saying they're cousins. Where's the relationship? I'm trying to figure it out.
Mm,
But what it was is they were building a community
Mm-hmm.
of the darker skin families, and they were doing many things together, from church to school to this everything. And then so kids grew up, and Auntie
Mm-hmm.
or Miss May or whatever, there was. And I said,
The
so
extended
now I
family structure.
understand. Now I said, all right, okay. But it was needed. It was
Mm-hmm.
truly needed because of the, um, what they were going through,
Yeah.
on both sides. Even, the Cape Verdean families, there's a divide right there in their own country.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's a divide just amongst the islands. Never mind just the skin color.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but anyways, that's a that's a
Because
it's a doc. We all seen the documentaries on it,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
But there's another documentary in this city that could kind of be a different kind of story, but the same, kind of uh, the same misconceptions, and I just, I would like to do that, and I'm not gonna. There's something in the works,
Mm-hmm.
um, between a mutual friend of ours that he's doing. I can't say too much, but he's on the path of doing something real well, award winning, um, at least a nomination if he does it, and I can't wait. I hope he does. We let's see. I'm gonna
I should also
probably go about 10, 15 more minutes.
okay. Well, here's one I can point out. I've been invited
Yep,
to sit on the board of directors for the New Bedford Film Festival,
very nice.
and I think part of it was because I started asking questions about
Hmm.
diversity.
I love it.
And like, did you reach out to this group? Did you reach
Mm,
out to this group? Did
I
you reach
love
out to
it.
that group? Did you reach out to that? And it was
I love it.
because sometimes again, the gatekeeping runs so deep that they're not even conscious.
Hmm.
People can unintentionally gatekeep,
I've seen it,
and
experienced it,
be,
and you are 100% right.
because the challenge came and they said, "Oh, we want to involve the whole city."
Mm,
Okay,
yeah.
well, what you've done is involved all the white people.
Hmm.
That's not the whole city.
Yeah.
And they did not intend, I realized, but it was just sort of like, as this is being pointed out, it's kind of like,
Hmm.
didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
And like I said, so it wasn't malicious but it's become so normalized because you even think about, remember that TV show Seinfeld?
Hmm.
It took like it to be pointed out, how can you have a show in New York and there's not a single black person? And it was true. There's a show
It's
taking
true.
place in New York City, and it's like not even in the restaurant.
Hmm.
Wait a minute.
Yeah. 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 No,
That's not
you,
that. But
no soup for you. Guess what? That could have been. There might have been a few black people saying the same thing.
yeah, that's it.
And
Around that same time, there was a soul food restaurant on
hmm
125th and St.
Yep.
Nicholas. The thing that was always funny to me is they always ran out of greens before
Hmm.
3:30 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
I'm like, then just buy some more bleep
Hmm.
bleep greens.
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
not just buy more greens?
Buy more.
If it's like, oh, you just got to get here early.
Hmm.
Why don't you just buy more greens?
Yeah.
You're gonna sell them.
Hmm. They had a.
Especially gonna be open for like another 7 hours, and you're already out of greens.
They cut their cash flow for. What do you only have 2 pots? Guess what? Get a third one. Do
This is why
something.
the restaurant's gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because you think about it, there were a bunch of music videos that featured this restaurant.
Hmm.
If you ever see the movie Belly,
Yes.
towards the end of the movie when he meets DMX, when Nas
Mhm.
meets DMX, that's the restaurant.
Wow.
And they'd be out of greens by 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and the restaurant was usually open till like 10 or 11.
Yeah.
And I'm like, then you buy some more damn greens.
Buy some more. It just that's funny. That is funny. What
Oh, the other fun thing
Yep, go ahead.
that we got going May 4th.
All right.
May 4th is the Groove Fest. And you were going to do some live, I think, from that.
Mm-hmm.
Groove Fest is going to be the first Saturday of May 4th, and it's actually a 2-venue party.
Okay.
So You have the New Moon Dance Party that's going to have Body, Body, Body,
Mm-hmm.
Co-Creative Center.
Yeah.
So they're going to be doing electronic underground dance music. At Gallery X, we're going to be, now this is where you're going to have some Groovalatos.
Mm-hmm.
May 4th is where you're going to have live music, some electronica also, but you're going to have live music going on. Our show closer is going to be Chops Turner.
All right.
And largely because he's going to be coming directly from his gig at Tomatoes
Mm-hmm.
in Sandwich, shooting right down, come and perform with us. But it's going to be soul, funk, rock, jazz,
Very
R&B,
nice.
all in one evening.
See, that's what I'm talking about. Within by the end of the month, you and I got to definitely talk so we can build a calendar.
Yeah.
And let's try to make it so we can share it, right?
Yeah.
And put all the events in one certain thing. And I could definitely advertise it here occasionally between the both podcasts that I do, and but I'm traveling when you travel, so I definitely want to, as I'm doing things, I'm going to have to write down things and build that community calendar because I think it's very, very important. Let's say instead of having 20 people, I like to see 60 people there, 80 people there,
That becomes part of the scene
Yeah.
aspect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the thing also for folks to understand is there's room for involvement. We're not just asking you for to be audience.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's room for involvement when the thump and soul session, bring drums,
Yeah.
bring poetry.
Mm-hmm.
If you feel inclined to drop some words on the mic while the music is
Yeah.
going, turn the music down, do
Mm-hmm.
poetry, come
Yep.
play the drums along, because it's about vibing.
Yeah.
It's about feeling your vibe.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not, because you have some events where it's just, oh, hi, come be an audience. And
Yeah.
sit there and look at each other and have a drink.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there's so much. There's so much. I mean, about a year, 6 months, 8 months ago, the poetry event they had at the Verdian Vets, actually it was July. It was during the month of the Independence Parade and Recognition Week rather. And that was nice to see, so many people in that venue.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing they were seeing was poetry.
Mm-hmm.
So there's so many different, and they were coming from Boston, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, all parts of Massachusetts, from the Cape to even Western Mass. So
the fun part that same weekend was what we did at the band club.
Yes.
It can honestly be said, I don't think they've seen that many people in the club at one time in quite some time, except for the afternoon the Groovalatos came and played.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And personal history that I have with that club, family history. My grandfather played there back
Mm-hmm.
his band played there, I believe, back in the 40s. But a little before that,
Mm-hmm.
my other grandfather used to run for Joe Kennedy.
Yeah. Yep.
So he delivered to. He delivered to that.
Yeah, we talked about Kool-Aid earlier.
Yeah.
A little different.
That wasn't Kool-Aid.
Ray had mentioned. She said, just in case you missed it, Bebo's on Onset Ave Saturday, February 12th at 8 p.m.
The 10th, actually.
10th, February 10th, sorry. And that's very, very important because guess what? I'm going to be there.
Right.
So that's definitely going to be a good event. And we did mention it, but
we mentioned it, but
Ray, thank you.
Ray's on point. So
yeah, she's doing her job. Checks in the mail, all right?
The Wamptronica retractable sign showed up today in the mail, by the way.
Yeah.
But yes, that's a fun one. We need to maybe talk about next time.
All right.
But yeah.
Like I said, my show, your show. Anything we're doing or you need to do, we can get it done here. All right, I'm trying to. All right, we're gonna close this up. Everyone, thank you for being part of this great show. I can't wait. I'm gonna definitely download this and put this on Spotify on a Really Charlie channel on Spotify.
All right.
We are on YouTube. So if you go to Really Charlie, we are on YouTube talking. I'm gonna actually through that video and actually produce the audio, the MP3, and all that. So, so I'm gonna do a lot of that. Probably as soon as I get home. If not, I'll be doing it tomorrow morning, and make sure that I get us on Spotify. I'm gonna cut and paste and steal a lot of stuff on your pages, so I can add it to the description, so everyone knows where to be part, as you said, to be part of what you're doing. And why not do it through our platforms that we have?
Yeah.
All right, everyone. This is Professor what? No, this is DaPhunkee Professor, right?
Yep.
Waleem. This is I just want to say that, you know what, we hit a lot of things in a nutshell, but this is a lot of knowledge here sitting beside me, and we're gonna pick his brain and we're gonna listen to him tell some stories. You know, years ago they had folk stories, and this is what we're doing. This is some stories that we're passing on, you know, so you can kind of pass it on to the people that you know. And it's poetic conversation, you know. I hope you like the background that was done by Outlaw Graphics. My good friend, he likes to, when he hears that I'm going to do something, brainstorming different things, he brings his own creativity to work, and he comes up with different things like that. And along with all the different logos for the Really Charlie podcast, he's done it for me, along with the fentanyl facts and stories that I do on Wednesdays with Paula. That's all Outlaw Graphics. You know, he's doing some great things. So, all right. So when's the next time we're going to do this?
I guess what is the what's the first Tuesday of March? Here, I can look real quick.
Yeah.
First Tuesday of March is the 5th.
The 5th, March 5th. We will do this again.
It's March 5th. More poetic conversation.
Yeah, some great conversation. But if you need anything from us, just get in touch with me.
Oh, of course.
And
likewise.
And we're always a phone call away, anyways. We can communicate that way. All right, everyone. I'm gonna end this podcast with my favorite song by Lionel Peter Walker, another creative man in the area. And he was the first recipient of the Sunshine Award given out by the Really Charlie podcast, which we will be doing another one, the third recipient of that award. And we look for people that are making others shine, and that's the recipient that I'm looking for. So you have anybody in mind, let me know, and we will definitely put it in the pot and make a decision who's going to be the 2024 Sunshine Award winner. I'm going to try to do that in the next couple of months. All right, y'all. Here we go. Have a good night, y'all.
It's the Really Charlie podcast. Yeah, it's the Really Charlie podcast. Yo, it's the Really Charlie podcast. Bumping through your broadcast. Grab a chair, fill your glass. Yeah, it's the Really Charlie podcast. Yo, it's the Really Charlie podcast. Yeah, it's the Really Charlie podcast. Bumping through your broadcast. Grab a chair, fill your glass.